Test one. I will now call the May 27th, 2026 regular Historic Preservation Commission meeting to order. Can I have a roll call and posting, please?
Yes. Good evening, Historic Preservation Commission. So the agenda has been posted in accordance with Nevada open meeting law. All members are present and a quorum has been established.
Thank you. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on our agenda is the initial comment period. Public comment during this portion of the meeting must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. Each person has up to 3 minutes to speak on a specific agenda item. The public may call 702-589-9629 to provide comment. If there are those in the audience who wish to speak, please come to the podium and state your name.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commission, staff, and ladies and gentlemen, myself. I just wanted to comment on agenda item number 2 for consideration. Just want to thank the Commission for all its help and insight into and your enthusiasm for adding the Motel Sign District to our wonderful little historic downtown area. I think anything that promotes Boulder City in a positive light and manner, certainly to people not familiar with Boulder City to begin with, can only benefit us all. And we look forward to collaborating with some of the other motel owners here in town and revitalizing that corridor. And hope too that we can one day soon, very soon, make the Flamingo a shining beacon on Nevada Way again. And not the way it currently is, but we will endeavor to do all we can do to turn that around for you guys. Thank you so much.
Sorry, can we get your name for the record?
Sorry, Brent Smith for the record.
My name is Robin Baker, and the first thing is not necessarily an agenda item, but I think it contributes to the agenda items because I want to thank you all for your participation. I know that you show up and you do whatever it is you do with an open heart, and I think that's what we need in the historic district. But speaking to an agenda item is number 3, and I would just like for all of you to be more cognizant about language. And 2 examples are when you were talking about the award for Historic Day, the house or the structure that was going to be receiving the annual award. When I actually read about it, it stated a project. So is a project the same as a building or a house or a structure? So what exactly is a project? So I had a question about that. And I suspect that I'm not the only person when they read information about the historic preservation has questions about what specific words mean. So in relation to the award, did that mean an ongoing project that had been happening annually or every 3 years? Because when I looked at some of the nominations, they didn't look like projects to me. They looked like beautiful buildings, things I admired, but not necessarily projects. So one of the things that makes me a little crazy about the historic preservation is alignment, so that your words align with your actions. So the other example I have is last meeting when it was last stated into the minutes. It was I'm talking about item number 3, as the motel district. And when it started, I thought it was motel sign district. And so if it is a motel sign district, I think it should be stated that way in every conversation so that people know exactly what we're talking about. Because I think if we have any contributing signs, it's wonderful. The more we have, the merrier, whether it's motels or signs. And I personally am not concerned about national registration for anything. If the city recognizes it as a historic sign or gives it an era or date, I'm happy with that, whatever you decide. Which leads me to the last comment I want to make is, one of the things I have been doing is talking to city council people, trying to push some of the things that I email you ladies and gentlemen about, to find out how realistic my thinking is, if my thinking aligns with anyone. And one of the things I've learned is that if you ask questions, you can actually do more, such as Chuck's Magazine. That is a possibility. You just have to ask. The money is there. Anyway, have a good evening, and thank you for your help. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Brenda Delormier, and I was actually going to ask, I know I can't ask questions, but I'm actually curious how the Motel Sign District got its name. I think at one point maybe it included signs like that were on the Southwest Diner, but I know they weren't included in this survey, so if anybody wants to address that later. It's just a curiosity I had. Otherwise, maybe it'd be like the roadside motel district. But anyway, I do like the Southwest Diner sign. I think there are a number of properties. I know that the Little City Grill isn't there anymore. I don't know what's going to become of it, but so anyway, curiosity I had. We have talked to a number of the other motel owners. It sounded like we had gotten interest from them. I know a number of them don't live here. A number of them are working right now at their properties, so they're not able to attend a meeting during hours like this. But in order to engage them more, I had a couple suggestions, and I know when talking to them, they said, well, you know, we don't want to be told what to do. So I've tried to explain the difference between like what a historic preservation grant might look like versus what the RDA grant looks like, for example, and tried to explain like, oh, you know, if you're looking to say redo your sign and you don't know how you might want to redo it, you might be able to come see the city, come see the city's consultant that they work with, Courtney Mooney, and get some guidance or advice on that. That's a service that the city could offer. So one suggestion, I talked with one of you earlier about this, maybe you could poll all the owners and ask what their greatest needs are. You know, do you need, what would you do with a grant if it were made available? Would you want to work on your windows? Do you need a new HVAC system? Do you need a new sign? Are your lights out? You know, what are your greatest needs? So, and also, I'm wondering if, with the district, if we were to make a district like this, if the city would be working with other groups like the Chamber of Commerce to bring other features and other commerce to that area, things like the wine walk. Like, are there other benefits that owners would be seeing that could maybe be sold to them as one advantage of like participating in such a district? So, and then maybe just one suggestion is trying to get together for a town hall. If they're not available all at the same time, maybe that could be done remotely on Zoom, something like that. So those are my comments, and thank you all for everything you do. Wow, 3 minutes exactly.
Any written comments or comments on the phone? Nope. Okay, great. Moving on to agenda item number 1, agenda item number 1, approval of the, what was the date of this? April 22nd, 2026, Historic Preservation Commission minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve minutes.
The comments about the minutes.
Oh, okay.
On page 12 of the minutes, it's just a comment that there's a paragraph that says that in response to my question, Manager Mays stated the issue, the city has not issued any request for proposals regarding the use of the building, et cetera. But somehow it doesn't say what the building is. We were talking, I was talking about the water filtration plant, and it doesn't actually mention that in that paragraph. That probably needs to be inserted in there somewhere. And just my comment on that.
Thank you. Any other comments or corrections? Do I have a motion to approve then with the additional corrections?
I do a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Agenda item number 2 for possible actions, matters pertaining to the historic district designation of 8 surveyed motel properties and signs at 701 Nevada Way, 725 Nevada Way, 800 Nevada Way, 804 to 805 Nevada Way, 809 Nevada Way, 921 Nevada Way, and 1009 Nevada Way.
Thank you, Commissioner Davenport. Before I turn it over to Ms. Mooney, I wanted to provide some context regarding this agenda item. So, Section 1127.4 of the City Code provides the process for creating new historic districts in Boulder City. It goes on to further state that a historic district may be created if it substantially complies with both of the following criteria. Contains properties and an environmental setting which meet two or more of the criteria for designation of a historic property and constitutes a distinct section of the city. The criteria for designation include possesses significance in history, architecture, archaeology, and culture, is associated with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad patterns of local, regional, state, or national history, is associated with persons or events that have made a significant impact on our past, represents the work of a master designer, builder, or craftsman, embodies the distinctive characteristics of a type, period, or method of construction, and represents an established and familiar visual feature of the city. Steps involved in creating a new historic district include that a majority of the Historic Preservation Commission members present approve the initiation of the process, making a recommendation to the city, which occurred in this case. That prior to the commission making a recommendation to the city council regarding a proposed district, the property owners received notification of the public hearing no less than 30 days prior to the public hearing, which did occur. And with a positive commission recommendation, the city council will consider the possible district designation at a public hearing following proper notifications subject to state law, specifically NRS 384.005. The Historic Preservation Commission asked Broadbent and Associates to conduct an extensive level architectural survey to better understand the historical context of the 9 motels located along Nevada Way between Buchanan and New Mexico Street. The findings are attached to the staff report. Courtney Mooney with Broadbent and Associates is here to provide a presentation regarding the proposed district and survey. So what staff is requesting that the commission do, hear Ms. Mooney's presentation, ask questions of Ms. Mooney and staff, hold the public hearing, then deliberate and consider a recommendation to the city council regarding the possible creation of a new historic district. With that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Mooney.
Okay. Next slide, please. Good evening, Commissioner and staff and members of the public. Broadbent conducted an intensive level survey and inventory of 9 historic age motel properties located within Boulder City. They're listed here and shown on the map. The purpose of the survey was to determine eligibility of the resources for Boulder City's historic property register based on criteria in the city's zoning code, as well as the National Register of Historic Places. As a result of the survey and research, we recommended the non-contiguous Boulder City Historic Motel District to include the properties, again on the map here, and to be designated on the city's historic property register. The National Register requires that a period of significance be established in order to further define eligibility. So in this case, we defined that period as beginning in 1932, when the oldest extant motel was constructed, and ending in 1957, which is corresponding with the last year of construction of an extant motel built in the mid-century motor court type along Nevada Way. The motel had to be able to convey its significance as an early to mid-20th century motor court type motel, which was typically 1 story, sometimes with a 2nd story over the office for managers' quarters, a U or an L or an I-shaped plan surrounding or right adjacent to a parking area and a pool. And the property also had to retain an adequate amount of integrity built within the remaining from the period of significance. So the Best Western Hoover Dam Hotel and sign, constructed in 1982 and around 2008 respectively, were evaluated and removed from consideration as part of the district, as it was not yet 50 years old and it lacked the required design components. Okay, next slide. The remaining 8 properties and their associated signage were evaluated for individual eligibility to the National Register. The Flamingo Inn at 808 Nevada Way is recommended as individually eligible for listing in the National Register under criteria A and C as an intact example of a motor court type motel in Boulder City. The El Rancho Boulder Motel could be considered a contributing property to a historic motel National Register district. And none of the signs within the district were recommended as individually eligible or contributing, as they were all installed after 1957. And that's for the National Register. And the National Register requires a majority of properties within a proposed district to be recommended as contributing. And so the motels within the survey area could not meet the National Register district criteria. So I just wanted to make that clear, and then we can move on to the local findings. Okay, next slide, please. We then evaluated the motels for listing in the local historic property register, both individually and as a district. 5 motels within the survey area, including the Flamingo Inn from the previous slide, and the Oasis Boutique Hotel, El Rancho Boulder Motel, Boulder City Inn, and the Sands Motel, are all recommended as individually eligible for listing on the city's register. They're over 50 years old, and they possess significance in history, architecture, archaeology, and culture. That's the quote from the code. And they represent an established and familiar visual feature of the city. Next slide, please. 3 historic age signs, the Sands Motel of Boulder City, Flamingo Inn, and Nevada Inn, are recommended individually eligible for local listing as historic structures under the same criteria as the motels themselves. So in summary, next slide, sorry. The Flamingo Inn is recommended as individually eligible for listing in the National Register and in the local register. No National Register district is recommended, and 6 properties, including the Flamingo Inn, are recommended as individually eligible for local designation and contributing to a local historic district. And that's it.
Does anybody have any comments or questions for Courtney?
Yeah, I had a question in regards to the district for the hotels, but also the signs. The point of reference for me that I thought was interesting was the period of significance. And that tends to become the focus of identifying whether it qualifies. And I know none of the signs fall within the period of significance. And I think the point of reference became 50 years or older. And I just wanted to get your opinion on that, because I always love the debate.
Yeah.
I learned something, and I think whether it's between us or whether it be with you, Courtney, but this is something kind of new for me, and it kind of rocked my brain a bit, but I want to hear your thoughts on that.
So the National Register requires a period of significance to be defined so that you can, it's a way to help identify or help support the criteria. So it's just one aspect of looking at the significance of the resources and evaluating their significance. So the local historic property register does not ask you to have a period of significance. So when we were looking at the properties for a National Register district or individual eligibility, we had to use that bracket. The local district requirements are a little bit more flexible, and so we were able to, make it work for more of the properties.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
So I have a question about the list that's here that we determine whether a building can be designated, and we have all of our buildings fall. All the buildings we talk about, most of them fall in that 50-year range. Most everything in Boulder City is going to fall within that range. And then we've got another list that it seems really subjective. A lot of those designations seem really subjective, considering that Boulder City itself is a historic town. The entire town is historic and contributes to the national history. We're the town that built Boulder Dam. So just by virtue of the buildings, one of these older buildings just standing within this city, it possesses significance in history. It possesses significance to our culture. The second criteria, it's associated with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad patterns of local, regional, state, or national history. Well, that would be just about every building within that 50-year frame. Everything that's here has been here a long time and has served a purpose here to the entire functioning of the town. Is it associated with persons or events that have made a significant impact in our past? Quite possibly every building that's here has had somebody significant walk into it at one point or another who has come to Boulder City to either see the dam or to see the town over time. So it's really pretty subjective. So who is it that determines whether a building fits these definitions, seeing that they're so subjective?
Well, it's my job to make a recommendation. So we do we research and we prepare the historic context so we can kind of see what were the events that were occurring that the motels might be associated with, what big local or state or national events that they might be associated with. And we found that almost all of them were associated with just general tourism going on at that time. There were a lot of people going to Lake Mead. There was a lot of the, airline tourism going on with, out at Bullock Field. This was kind of like the big, the kind of big moment for all over the nation. In fact, these roadside motels were popping up because right after the war, people they had more leisure time, they had more money, and they had more vacation time. Vacation time was actually a thing that was starting to happen, that companies were offering vacation time to their employees. So they were taken to the roads, and they were going to see the dam, and they were going to Las Vegas. So almost all of the motels that we looked at met that significance. The significance associated with the person or individual has to have done his or her best and most significant work of their life in that property. So just because, George Washington went there, it doesn't mean that that's a significant property. He has to have written all of his most important papers from that building or whatever. So, or an architect, you may find that it's associated with an architect's work under A, or C, under C, but not under B because he didn't live there, and that building is not the best and most representative example of his work. So B is a little bit tricky, like where you're talking about associated with a person. What it really came down to was integrity. So a lot of them were built during the time period. They were associated with, they had significance for being associated with the tourism, the automobile tourism and those types of things, but they lacked integrity. They'd had way too many alterations, or and the alterations may have completely changed their plan, their actual physical floor plan, or it's changed the setting of the site, significantly, like, for example, Nevada Way with all the new buildings in the 70s and 80s and all of that stuff. So that's what it really came down to. So we identified a type that was the typical kind of type, motel, motor court type that was happening everywhere because of automobile tourism. And that's what, that's what we base the integrity on. And most of them are that type, but they've just made a lot of changes over the years. And they can no longer represent that type. So you can be significant, but not eligible, because you're significant, but you can't convey your significance anymore with all of the changes. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. When I was reading through this list, I was trying to think of any buildings at all that meet these criteria, that is associated with a person or event that has made a significant impact in our past. Is there any building in Boulder City that meets that criteria? And do we have any buildings at all that is the best work of some master designer, builder, or craftsman? Frank Lloyd Wright, did he build anything here? Is there anything significant that reaches that level of significance?
Well, it doesn't have to be the best work. That's just an example. So for an example, the Navy hangar is not the best work of Louis Kahn, but it is an example of his work, and it's an intact example. So it can convey the significance of its association with Kahn. So it's because it has hardly had any changes. So I would say that, you are correct that most of the buildings, especially in the Boulder City Historic District, are significant. They were found significant because they're associated with the early development of the city, with, with reclamation and 6 companies and all of that, right? But if they can't convey their significance, if they've had too many changes, then they can no longer be considered contributing or individually eligible.
I think the point that I'm trying to make is that with this criteria, we are excluding the vast majority of buildings of old buildings in historic Boulder City. There really isn't too many things at all that meet the criteria of this list. It seems like it's almost unachievable for most old buildings in Boulder City. So when we're trying to look for more participation in people taking care of their old buildings, we see a list like this that actually excludes everybody who would otherwise want to participate, but they don't meet any of these criteria. I just think the criteria are too subjective and they're too restrictive, that it prevents people from wanting to participate in what we're trying to do, which is take care of our old buildings in our beautiful town. So I think that's the point I'm trying to make. I don't know exactly how to solve that, but
sure. Well, you take that up with the National Register. But I think that the really, what communities do to solve that problem is they create their own criteria that makes more sense to their local communities.
Yes.
And that's why these motels met that criteria, because it's a little bit more flexible. It's over 50 years old. And I really liked the one that was, it's an established and familiar feature, because that one is kind of like, you can have a little bit of wiggle room with the integrity. If it's been in that condition or that, that state for as long as it has, it is an established and familiar feature of the city. So I really tried to, be broad in my thinking there so that we could come up with something that would help, and also local designation has more teeth. It helps protect the buildings more than National Register designation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what, that's what we ended up having to go with.
I feel kind of relieved that we don't qualify for the National Register in a lot of ways, because we're local people. We're just hometown people. We're friends. We're neighbors. I love it when somebody is taking apart their old building and putting it back together in a way that makes it usable for another 100 years. I've stopped by several places where people have been working hard on their building, and I applaud it. I applaud it when people are spending money, putting money into an old building, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of hoops to jump through. But when somebody wants to tackle an old building here in Boulder City, they're brave. They're very, very brave. I think our last meeting, the gentleman that came over from the Boulder City Electric Company, he went through his building, did a great job. That building is from the mid-50s, I think. I think that's what it was, 54, 55, around in there, if I remember right. He put a lot of money into there and did a great job on the building. It's not architecturally significant. It's not very notable, but it's been here for a really, really long time. And he rescued a building that was well on its way to being run down, and put a lot of heart and soul into it. Got some friends here who've bought a motel, and it's they're brave. It's gonna take a lot of work to rescue that building, but I really applaud the work that's being done.
Yeah.
And I think that people deserve as much help as we can give them without having exclusionary rules, but have something that's more locally. We can create something that is more inclusive to people who are really trying hard to do something with their buildings.
Just a quick follow-up. Part of the reason those standards are set so high is that when you're applying for something on the National Register, it's supposed to be something that is exceptional. And so that is why those bars are set high. It should be the best, last, shining example that you want to save.
But I think we've already determined that we're not
Right,
Maybe
I'm
the
just helping
National
add
Register
context for you.
And just to add on to that, it's only 50 years plus 2 of what's, those options on there. And I think the National Register is the standard, and I think it is a good standard to follow. And I would just be an advocate of kind of mandating for that too. But I think, when I read this, to me, this isn't exclusive in a sense. Like, so there's 8 hotels listed here, 2 are considered non-contributing. But correct me if I'm wrong, Courtney, those 2 that are non-contributing can still be part of the district as long as the majority of the district is contributing. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
And then as a follow-up to that, and I know there's another reference point on a later agenda item that is a point of reference for me even as I ask this question, but when a building is considered non-contributing, can it become contributing if it's restored, rehabilitated, and brought back the original historic character that maybe was lost?
It can, and the city actually has grant funding to help people. That's the goal, is to get people to, for non-contributing properties, to bring it to contributing. There's certain things that, for some properties that have really had significant changes, it might be pretty cost prohibitive to bring it back to contributing. But I would also note that the State Historic Preservation Office, they're not going to change their record. So if someone here brings it up to contributing, that is a local achievement. That's not necessarily something that goes, it doesn't change with the state. And it goes the opposite way as well. If somebody is contributing and then they become non-contributing due to alterations, the state doesn't automatically just change their, classification of the building. So it would not change unless there was another survey done, which I don't think there's one planned in the near future, so.
I have a question.
Sure.
So the report that you did, even though we are already establishing that we can do a local historic district, but it says here that the Flamingo, for an example, it actually qualifies to be on the National Register. So could that still happen if the owners choose to take the report and put it on the National Register so that they could get more grants?
So we recommended it was eligible. The State Historic Preservation Office makes the final, they weigh in, they can comment. They try to work with whoever is preparing the report or the property owner to get it to that point if they feel that it's eligible. And then it goes through a process. It goes to the State Board of Museums and History for review. And if it passes that, then it goes to the keeper of the National Register, and they are the final say. So we make a recommendation, which is basically like we're saying, if you want to pursue this, you have a pretty good chance. But we don't determine, consultants don't determine, even cities don't determine what can and can't be listed on the National Register. That goes above. But yes, a lot of the work is done, but they would need some more research on their individual property.
Any other comments? Okay. I had a lot of comments, and I already sent them to Nikisha, and I think she's going to pass them on to you regarding your survey and just some editorial and formatting comments. But one of the comments I had, though, you talk about tourism, the history of tourism, and you mentioned auto tourism as well as air traffic or air tourism. And I'm hoping you can maybe add a little blurb in there about railroad tourism, or how did the railroad contribute?
I think it's okay. I'm sure it's fine. I would love to speak to Commissioner McMahon. Sorry. I always just want to say Chris, so I apologize. Yeah, sure. I will definitely talk to you. And I just want you to know that I have not had a chance to read your comments, so I cannot prepare.
I know.
I don't have any way to give you any
That's
information
fine.
about it.
I just wanted to
Okay.
convey that that was one of my questions that I thought was kind of an important little paragraph, I guess, to add to the survey. And I guess if that's true, did you want to say anything about, did the railroad contribute to tourism here?
Yes, it did, and I'm happy to work with Ms. Mooney.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's a good thing to add.
Okay, what did I also question about? I just wanted to point out that one of the properties is in the Boulder City Historic District, and hoping you can correct that in the survey, but was curious if that affects or not the new district.
No, and it's actually two properties. It's actually
Best Western.
Best Western's, yeah, it's they're both non-contributing in the Boulder City Historic District. But yes, I will add that language in here for sure. I thought we had that in there, so I apologize. If it's listed on the local register, it should not be, I don't see how that is a conflict.
Okay.
So I think we're okay. I know it's difficult sometimes to overlap National Register districts, but I think since we're looking at local, I think it'll be okay.
Okay, thank you. And what are the numbers below the property numbers? Are those? It says like 186-08- are those the
Those are parcel numbers.
parcel numbers? Okay,
And I thought it was in the legend, but if not, we'll fix that.
I could have missed it too. And
I have another question.
one second. Okay, and those were my only questions regarding the survey. I do have questions for staff about the process of moving forward with recommending this to City Council.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
So I have a question. We talk a lot about creating a new district, a historic district. What would be maybe the positives and the negatives of maybe creating a new city approach where individual properties, individual owners could ask to opt into a historic recognition by the city, not nationally, not by state, but by the city, just being recognized individually. There's some properties would like to be included, some properties wouldn't. But if a property owner has a building that they would like to include, what would be the positives and the negatives of creating that kind of a policy for the city?
I might turn that one over to the city. I mean, of course, being a preservation advocate, like we would love to see more buildings listed. I think it helps, it just overall generally helps improve pride in the community and, a sense of ownership and a connection to your history. But beyond that, and local designation doesn't really open up larger funding opportunities like National Register does. So it's more of a local kind of achievement or honor. But as far as incentives, I might just turn that over to the city to respond to, other than the grant that they have. I don't know what else.
So the city code stipulates the process for creating a district. A property owner could petition the city to have their property considered. It would have to meet the same criteria and conditions and go through the same process if a property owner was interested in becoming a part of a historic district. Now, I think with respect to standalone properties, we'd have to look at what that criteria are and the designation for that property. But if there are property owners that are interested, we're happy to talk to them.
One property owner did appear before us last meeting. He owns 1500 Boulder City Parkway. That's Aaron Meadow, and he's asking the commission would consider that building, which was built in 1949, to be a candidate for preservation funding. So how can we respond to him?
To be a candidate for preservation funding, it would need to be within one of the historic districts. So, I mean, we could certainly share with him the process that would be involved with that.
Yeah, so I don't think his building would be included in any kind of historic, any historic district. That's what I'm saying, a standalone property, as opposed to having, creating districts that would include newer buildings, or, I mean, if we create a district, and Courtney, I think you talked about hotels within the hotel district, but you selected certain properties which would be a part of that district, and you excluded others that don't meet that criteria. Can't we, isn't the reverse also true? That there could be a historic building, one standalone historic building in an area that has all other new buildings, or all pretty new construction that's since 1950. Wouldn't the reverse also be true? If we're excluding some buildings that are too new to belong to a historic district that we would establish, could you also include a historic building that is a standalone building and all the rest of them don't fit that criteria?
You could have an individually designated building. It wouldn't be a district.
Yeah, and that's the direction I wanted to go with that, is creating some kind of policy within the city in which individual properties can be recognized.
There is that.
Rather than belonging to a district.
There is that. There is a way, there is a process for that.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I know some of that was put on hold because of this, but I also thought there was a master plan to do a wider survey of residential properties, commercial properties, and then continue maybe that discussion about what other districts may be appropriate, and maybe it becomes a district inclusive of that property, that address.
Are you speaking, that's goal 3.1 and 3.2. That is ongoing.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
So, okay, cool.
But back to another original point that I spoke earlier, is that all of Boulder City is a historic district. I guess you could broadly define the entire town as a historic, it's already a historic place by its name, by its location, its association with history, American history, and all of that. Creating the district, it seems like we're just getting tied up in the weeds when we're trying to create a district, when it seems to be a simpler approach if we would just create a pathway by which individual property owners with significant properties or old properties that just need some help moving along, create a pathway for them to achieve their goal, their dream of having a significant building and being included and participating in the historic preservation of our town.
I'd like to just comment on that. And generally speaking, Boulder City is a historic district. But does that mean, I hope that's not suggesting, it doesn't mean that we should do away with all our historic districts and just make Boulder City one huge historic district, which I think would be pretty incompatible anyway. But I think we have to designate certain neighborhoods and certain buildings, certain areas that are officially historic, over and above the fact that, yes, the city is a district, but it's not a district as far as our definition is concerned. Just a comment about that.
Yeah, and just to remind Chair Davenport, the agenda item before the commission right now is relative to this proposed motel sign district, so.
Thank you. I did have one more question regarding the boundary. Are you proposing that the historic district isn't discontiguous historic district?
Yes, and that actually came from direction from the commission in the first presentation. So what you see is what the commission asked us to do, asked Broadbent to look at. But it's not set in stone, so we can always, obviously make changes before it goes to city council. So if we want to discuss, one of the reasons that we did not promote a full, complete boundaries because we didn't survey those interstitial properties, the little commercial properties in between the motel buildings. We only surveyed the motel buildings, again, at the direction of the commission. So we don't know if those motel building or those little shops are contributing or not contributing. We didn't look at them at all. So all we looked at was the motels. So it's going to have to be kind of a discontiguous district unless we go back and look at all of those other buildings.
So are you suggesting that in order for us to have a historic district, every single structure within that boundary has to be surveyed?
No, because obviously you can have, the city allows you to have a discontiguous district.
Right.
National Register likes nice, clean boundaries unless you're doing, a property type that's really well spread out. But, and you have to kind of have definable boundaries, which would be pretty easy with these property lines. But local does not require that. So this is actually a pretty good solution in not including those buildings that aren't really part of the theme.
Right. So I guess that was one of my comments is, will there be a map that shows the local historic district discontiguous boundary? Like, it'll actually be written on a map, because that's not what's shown. And it's not described, verbally or written as far as the boundary begins on blah, 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 like a normal National Register, which is what we're kind of following, National Register standards. And when I read the bulletin for establishing boundaries for discontiguous properties, they still have something on a map.
Well, again, this is not National Register.
I know.
So this is local, and we defined it by listing the properties that would be considered contributing to that district. And we defined it in the map by showing which properties are considered contributing and which ones aren't. So it's not going to have a clean boundary unless, and you don't need one, unless you look at some of these other buildings that are in between the motel buildings. I don't know.
Can you just list them as non-contributing within the boundary?
Sure, but then they might be subject to requirements, even if they're non-contributing. Non-contributing properties in the Boulder City Historic District have design guidelines written for them. And so initially, when we started this project, we were asked to only look at the motel properties because we didn't want to put that burden on those other, I shouldn't say burden, but those requirements on the other properties.
But that could be taken care of with the design guidelines where they're not included in the design guidelines because they're not listed.
Sure.
It just gets confusing when somebody says in my brain, a historic district, and there's nothing on a map. It's just a list. And
Well,
I'm just going back to,
So Holly, could you put up the second slide again?
Just saying, I agree with you too. I like things clean like that as well. If we can get to that, I think that would be desired.
Yeah. So you just want something drawn around those properties?
you already kind of made, it's called the survey. But I can't find it, but it's,
Sure, but we were asked to take that off. So that's why I'm trying to confirm the direction that the commission wants to go with
I don't know if
this.
we said take it, I don't understand that. What we said, it doesn't make sense to me what we said, but except that did we say that we didn't want a boundary on a map, or did we say we didn't want a historic district, or?
No, the commission direction was just to proceed with these motels and not the surrounding properties.
Which is what she did.
Yeah.
So she did that, and now we have this, not just a list, but geographically on a map, these properties. And I'm
And-
just thinking in the future, when we're trying to convey that this is a historic district, that this is the district.
You could have a map that highlights those properties, and they're a part of the motel sign district.
And they can never, should they be within a boundary, I guess, so that no other properties or hotels or, I don't know. I guess there are no other hotels, but,
And just another point for the commission to consider, if you wanted to modify what would be within the district and include additional properties, we would have to restart the process. Because we're required per city code to notify all the impacted properties of this potential designation.
So you're suggesting that if we put a boundary on a map that includes non-contributing properties, you still have to contact those non-contributing properties,
Correct.
even though they're not contributing?
Yeah, because we have non-contributing here that were notified. Anybody that would be included within the district, whether they're contributing or non-contributing, would require notification.
So as soon
But
as
you
put-
called it a district. You've been calling it a historic district. Granted, you haven't like put a line around it on a map, or you sort of did. It's a survey area.
A district can be a boundary of a bunch of parcels, or it can be a collection of individual.
Yeah, you want a nice clean line on a map, and that's not what the city code says it has to be. And as soon as you put that line, anything that falls within the line, by law has to be notified.
Okay. Is that a bad thing?
Depends. Do you want to move forward tonight or not? Because this would require starting the process all over. It would cost additional funds to do this and notify people and require additional research.
I have a question. Are we allowed to add to the district? So if we were to want to move forward and then later on we wanted to add, say, the shops to that district, is that something that is allowed to be done? Or would it be a different district?
Sure, it could be done. It might muddy the waters a little bit, but it could be done. It would just be the same process over again, doing all the research on the buildings and determining if they meet the significance that is attributed to the motels, so the tourism and all of that.
Okay, and then the other question I have is, I know that we're doing a larger one after we finish the motels, but that would include the rest of the buildings that are on that street as well.
Yep.
So it'll eventually happen anyway.
So maybe that's a good way to just have this weird non-boundary historic district and wait till later to finish 3.1 and 3.2, and then
I
we
mean,
can go
maybe
from
you
there.
could think of it as a multiple property submission in a way, where you have several properties that are scattered over an area that have the same, theme essentially and the same significance. But, I'm happy to look at whatever I'm directed to look at. So this is just the direction that we were asked to go, and we worked pretty hard to make that happen. But we can go back to the drawing board.
And maybe it's fine the way it is. It's just not clear in the report that it's not, this historic district will not have a boundary. Or should it say something like that?
Or maybe not a conventional boundary.
Or a conventional boundary, maybe that's the thing, I don't know. Because I don't think the word discontiguous is even in this, maybe it is, I don't remember. But that helps to kind of clarify that this is this kind of it's not random, but scattered structures within the bounds of the survey area. So anyway.
And I have one more question. If we call this the motel sign district, does that exclude any other old historic properties within that district that are not hotels, such as the old gas station that's down there, the red and white gas station, very nice building, and I'm also thinking of the Frosty Freeze. That's another really important historic building to a lot of people growing up, going to the Frosty Freeze over the years. If somebody wanted to preserve that and wanted to designate that as some kind of a historic building, or the gas station, would they be excluded from being a part of that historic district, even though they're within the district, but they're not a motel?
Well, just a point of clarification, it's not called the motel sign district, it's called the motel district. So the signs are associated structures, with the motel properties themselves. And once again, the significance that was established was we researched motels, specifically motels, not the other buildings. So if we wanted to start adding buildings in, we would have to research them and determine if they meet the same significance as the motel district. It doesn't mean they can't just because they're not motels. They would need to prove some sort of connection to the motel industry, perhaps, or the tourism industry, or something that was connected to the theme of the motels. I also wanted to just quickly point out that, unfortunately, I have to leave here in about 3 minutes. So what I am hoping for is if there are any more questions about the local nomination, so that I can take my notes and go back to the drawing board and, of course, review all of Chair Davenport's comments. Just wanted to make sure you guys got your questions.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. I apologize. It couldn't be avoided. I tried.
I'm glad you came here in person. That's
Thank you.
great.
Yes.
We appreciate all that you do for us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney.
So I have a quick comment just about what this would entail. So as my role as an advisor to this commission, I'm here to advise you on ramifications, whether positive or not. And I do believe it needs to be stated on the record so everybody knows that if we move forward with this, it does require the properties to go through the process of getting certificates of appropriation, complying with all appearance standards. This would become, to use Courtney's word, I know it was a slip, but it would be a burden to the property owners.
And you repeated it.
That is, for the record, not how I believe. Those are not my beliefs.
It's an opportunity.
Yes.
It does require compliance, which some may feel is a burden. Others, like some of our guests in the audience, see this as a great opportunity to keep the history alive.
Well, so this is something that will come out later, but I think the goal would be to have the property owners help develop the design standards, or work with the Historic Preservation Commission in the city and Courtney on developing design standards and what should and shouldn't be addressed.
And I agree with that as well. And I think the part that gives me peace is I think the reason why we're all here is because the residents of Boulder City want to maintain the historic integrity of the city, and by having districts that provide guidance to make better decisions, I think helps with that cause. So yes, I think to your point, you have to go through an approval process of changes that are going to be requested through a permit, but I'd like to think that there are incentives that help compensate the difference if there are additional costs associated with that. And we are here as an outlet and offering Courtney Mooney and others as an outlet to make educated decisions on the historic integrity of these old buildings.
Thank you.
I would like to make a comment. In doing this, we have just learned that there's technically, or actually factual information that says we only have one hotel now that can make it to the National Register, which means we almost are going to lose our history of these motels. But by turning it into a district, we give these motels an opportunity to bring their property back to being historic. And it's an expensive process. So doing this actually helps them. It doesn't burden them. And it also helps our community because we're restoring our history. And our history is important. And I come from San Francisco. We have very old buildings there. When I first moved here, my thought was, where's all the old buildings? There's nothing here that's old. They tear them down. We need to restore our history. We need to preserve it so that other people can see our history and appreciate it. And eventually they will. Sometimes there's like this little phase of time where maybe it's not quite old enough. Well, these are, and then they start making changes to it. Well, this is an opportunity for them to bring it back And we should, I don't know, I just think we should embrace that and be grateful that we have the opportunity to do that rather than just dismiss it. And if we dismiss it, we're going to lose our history of the motels, period. It'll be gone.
Thank you. Does anybody have any more questions for Courtney before she skedaddles?
Sneaks, skedaddles.
All right. The only questions I have are for city staff regarding this process, unless you want to, or are you involved in the process of, I guess I was curious, do you attend the city council meeting and make a similar presentation? And
I don't think we've decided on that yet.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all. I really appreciate your comments and your thorough reading of the report, and we'll get there. We'll get there. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks a lot. So my questions for staff was the process of notifying the property owners, and they first sent out a notice as required, 30 days notice, but then there were no comments received, correct?
Correct. No feedback whatsoever.
No feedback. So then the economic developer, I'm not sure what his title is, Rafi, reached out, and we're not sure really yet what responses he received. But I'm curious if we can't really move forward because, one, we don't have all of formal comments from Rafi or this evening. Well, we have yet to open it up for public comment. But also, I wonder if we didn't get any responses because the property owners didn't understand or completely comprehend or know what they were having to comment on. They didn't get any information from the survey. They have no idea, I don't think, why their property is historic, what's significant, how it contributes to the historic district or not. I don't think they understand that there are incentives for preserving their properties, such as the grants that are available, and were they made aware of, or how do we make that information available to them? And should that information have been supplied beforehand, before we can actually, if we don't get any feedback from them, I feel like we can't really make a determination to move forward without their feedback because they didn't get any information to make a decision about what they should.
If I can
comply
jump in
with.
here, did we not receive a written comment this morning from one of the property owners? Yeah.
Yes, it was just one written public comment that we received in opposition from one of the property owners.
Yeah, so it's not that nobody's commented. They have.
It's just one out of
And
8.
we've had another couple here that have testified in. So that's 25%. That's actually a really
I don't
good
think,
response rate.
I don't know if is that sufficient that they spoke now, or do they have to come back up and basically say the same thing to make it a formal, like, yes, we support this?
They
And-
provided the public comment before, but certainly with the next public comment period, which we're required to do, they can speak again on that.
And how does the commission feel about the majority? That's not the majority of the property owners?
I feel that when people don't like something happen in Boulder City, this room gets filled. So I think that the fact that nobody is here is because they're not against it. Because if they were against it, they would be here.
So a no response is a positive response?
Yep.
All right.
The opposite
Boulder
is also
City it
true.
is.
And I guess how is that going to look to the city council if there was no responses, or written or verbal, and
Yeah,
within
well,
a majority?
Sorry, I want to go ahead and share the responses because we did have Rafi Fitzdiction, who's our economic development coordinator, reach out to all of the motel owners. And I just want to summarize, I guess, the responses that we did get. So they did all confirm that they received the mailing notice. In regards to opposition, 4 of the property owners were in opposition. One, I guess it's technically 5. One of them owns 2 properties, so if you wanted to count it per property or property owner. And then we got 2 in support, and then 1 was undecided. So that's just a summary. Many of them said that they would attend, but that is not what has occurred, and I don't know if anyone's going to call in. So that's kind of where we are with the feedback that we got from the property owners.
But it's unclear what Rafi asked them. Did he just ask them, did you get the mailing? Do you have any questions? And that was it? Or did he say, hey, this is what the designation means, these are the incentives, or these are the grants that are available, these are the pros, these are maybe the cons, you know?
So staff is always available to meet or talk to property owners regarding any type of zoning or other entitlement designation. Every notice provides contact information. We encourage people to reach out because we want property owners who may be impacted by some type of regulation to be able to meet with us so we can educate them.
But they don't know what the regulation is. They just know that there's this historic designation.
Right, and so that's why
Know
we're
what that-
happy to talk to them and explain it.
It's also an assumption
An assumption
that
that they don't know. True. But I think the burden of education is on us and not the public to come to us to ask those
I
questions.
agree completely, but
So, I don't know. I feel like it would be great if we could just, I mean, I don't know how this puts a dent in the process, but if we were to reach out again to the owners with information that comes from the survey, as far as why their property is important, what the pros and cons are for the designation, and have a concerted request for their input and comments, either in writing or if it's on the phone, and we transcribe that response. Just seems nebulous that, to me, that I don't really understand. Do we not have their support or not?
So I think Chairman Davenport, there's a couple of things here. Certainly, the commission can continue this to the next meeting. And in the interim, we can reach out again and encourage folks to provide their input, like we have previously, either in writing or in person. We can share the survey. We can talk to them about the pros and cons with any of the property owners that want to discuss that with us. We're happy to do that. And then since you had some significant changes to the survey, in the interim, Ms. Mooney can work on those, and next month we can provide the revised survey, and at that time the commission can decide whether to proceed.
Do you think the survey should be finalized before it's released or shared with the owners, or that doesn't matter?
We could certainly wait until that occurs.
Okay.
I'm not sure how long it'll take Ms. Mooney to make all those changes, but we would try to accommodate that.
And just to lay out this process for my own understanding is, so this commission would make a recommendation with the boundary that would go to the city commission. The city commission would vote yes or no on that. And I assume what would go on that would be whether the feedback is that it's half negative or half positive, and then they would make a decision. Is that how that process would work?
Yeah, the city council has a final say with the creation of the district. And as Chairman Davenport has previously mentioned, the work doesn't end there, because then the commission will need to work on the design guidelines. How would we treat contributing properties? How would we treat non-contributing properties? And then you would propose that to the city council, and the city council would adopt the design guidelines for this district.
And you should also mention, unless it's already mentioned, that depending on, if we approve this to this evening, there's another 30-day review process before the city council.
Even longer, per NRS, we have to publish a notice within the newspaper in 3 consecutive weeks. And so it will be at least 30 days before we go to the city council.
So then basically, the people who are against it still have opportunity to speak up against it, if they're really against it. Is that correct?
Yeah, they could come to the city council as well.
Or for it, if,
Moving it forward a little bit.
Unless, is there a process where we are involved during that process to better educate the owners? Before the 30-day, before we formally request comments from them?
I think this is part of the checks and balances on the system, though.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand your desire to want to educate, but I think there's also a presumption here that everybody should think this is a great idea when maybe the public doesn't necessarily agree with that sentiment. And we have feedback. And yes, we can give them another opportunity. I'm all for that. That's what good civic work is about. But I think part of the angling here from what I'm listening to is that there should be a belief that everybody thinks this is a good idea. And that may not be what the people that would be affected by this policy necessarily think.
I don't think they can make an educated guess. They don't have the information in order to understand that it is a good idea.
But that's an assumption.
And I think that this is a long process, and then nothing is decided until City Council makes the decision that it's a historic district. And so therefore, we're just going one further step. We're not making the decision that it is a historic district. That's not our place. It's just, our place is just to decide whether we should have City Council look at this to be a historic district.
Or is this, are we just sending a message to the public and the owners and city council that we think this is a great idea?
Yeah.
But we understand that there's more work that needs to be done. Is that okay with everybody?
I mean, I'm feeling the same thing that you are in the sense, I don't think any of us want to push something forward that's not going to be successful. And I think the more we communicate with the public about it, I'm also under the advisement that maybe they'll be more likely to accept it and be a part of it and not have frustrations or struggles with these changes that may happen. But what I don't know is what that process would be if there's a charrette or something like that where we can have a communal conversation about our understanding of historic districts, what we want to do, how we want to partner, all those kind of things. So we address their concerns of whether that's making profit or whatever that might be. I don't think that's the goal of the commission, is to restrict them in any way. It's really to help preserve the history of these buildings. And that is always going to be my focus in any conversation I have with anyone in the public. But to your point, I also don't believe that the public understands the nuances of this. And I've gone to school for this, and I still don't understand all the nuances of it. So, like, I would assume there's got to be a pretty big gap, for generally speaking. We all go on ChatGPT and we search for things, but there's errors in that as well, right? So I think having an opportunity to communicate that, I would also like to figure out what that would be and advocate in an open forum in some sense. And again, I'm a little naive on that process, so maybe it's not I don't know. Let's.
And maybe it's not just us, but it's certain owners that might take the initiative themselves in getting feedback. Is that appropriate if they, solicit their own input and gather their own survey and provide that with input or signatures or whatever?
You're suggesting the property owners among themselves would solicit each other to determine support?
Mm-hmm, right.
Haven't they done
certainly.
that?
Sorry?
During open comments, I believe that the two of them mentioned that they did talk to other motel owners to get support and help educate them on what the benefits were going to be if it became a historic district. So it does sound like a lot of that was done
But it doesn't
amongst
count.
themselves.
Yeah, but does that count as far as support? It's secondhand, third-hand knowledge. Does the city need to, do we need to get direct confirmation from the owners of their support or not, or comment?
I think what I'm hearing from the commission, you want to ensure success of this endeavor. Continuing this another month, revising the study, sending out the study to the affected property owners. Holding a forum probably will be as successful as inviting them to tonight's meeting, and a lot of them didn't show up. We will make ourselves available as staff to sit down with each of the property owners to talk about what the district is, the benefits, answer their questions about any concerns, and we can bring this back next month. And perhaps by then, property owners will have submitted something in writing or show up at the meeting to provide comment.
So what do people think? Should we table this, or?
I think we should table this another month, yeah.
I'm okay with tabling it.
I agree.
Yes.
It needs to be a form of a motion.
Okay. So in lieu of what is requested, do you need a motion?
Absolutely. And then just to be aware, you have the option of opening up the public hearing now. And you could close the public hearing now, or you could continue the public hearing to the next meeting as well.
Oh.
That is the commission's discretion.
Okay.
Can you define that a little bit more, like open the public meeting now? That means it's open for the whole month until the next meeting?
No, during this meeting, the
Oh.
opportunity for the public to speak.
Oh, she can open it up for them to call right now about this.
Right. And
Oh,
there,
okay.
perhaps there's some of the property owners that are waiting to call in. We don't know. You can continue it now, or you can open up the public hearing and then hold the option to continue the public hearing at the next commission meeting.
All right, let's go ahead and open it up for public comment then at this point. So,
Hi.
do I need
Hi.
to formally state? So public comment for this portion of the agenda item must be limited to this agenda item, and each person has up to 3 minutes to speak on the specific agenda item. The public may call 702-589-9629 to provide comment, and if there's folks in the audience that wish to speak, please come to the podium and state your name for the record.
Hi, Brenda Lormier. So, to be clear, I was the one who requested this in the first place in January of 2025, so it's been a long time coming. And I think there's still a lot of confusion among this commission from what I just heard. And I don't sign off on anything I don't understand fully. And I heard some things mentioned up here, and I said in prior meetings and in the initial public comment, one of the reasons that we were interested in doing this and that people are opting in, and one of the reasons we got support from everybody that we spoke to was because we sold all the benefits of this. And one of the things that we've been telling them the whole time, that I have said time and time again, the only reason I would be supporting it was if there were not mandates, that there were guidelines that we wrote ourselves. And I heard the word certificate of appropriateness. Absolutely not. I would not be signing off. I would not be a member of the district myself, and not one member of any of those motels will sign up either. I can guarantee you, all of you, that. So, and one of the reasons for that is I'm a homeowner in the original historic district. I think everybody in this room is also. And all of us will tell you, we are not happy with the historic preservation ordinance as it was forced on all of us in October of 2022. I feel like it's been a failure. It's been a burden. That's the exact correct word to use. I bought my house a year and a half prior to that, and the historic preservation grant was available prior to that. I wish I had known it was going to be rammed down our throats. Otherwise, I would have made some changes to my house before the ordinance came pushing its way through. And it's been a pain ever since. And instead of actually renovating my house, I just grew a jungle out front. And that was before I knew code enforcement didn't actually come around and enforce any of the things that are stated in that ordinance. Because they said they would come around and view it from the sidewalk. So I just decided to grow a giant jungle out front. And that's one of the reasons I would absolutely not support it if there is a certificate of appropriateness. If there are any mandates, I realize being on the NHRP, we would be susceptible to some of those, and that's another thing which obviously we would be fine with if we do choose to go that way. But just stating for the record, I do not support that. I support the owners all getting together and writing guidelines, and I expect the city to be there to provide resources, knowing this is an era that we don't have a lot of architecture around Boulder City, around Vegas. It's a disappearing era, and the point of it is to support it not going away, to support it, like one of you had said, people renovating their buildings and trying to keep this era alive, not to make it more difficult for people to maintain their properties. So, thank you all.
Madam Chair, Commission. Staff, Brandon Smith again for the record. Bryn said a mouthful there. I'd also like to convey that my own experience speaking with, and I pretty much covered all the owners in this district, spoken with them directly at length, and I'm a little confused. It sounds like there's much more opposition than what was conveyed to me directly from the other owners as we've spoken and exchanged ideas. The one theme that is carried through to everybody, which is pretty much just what Bryn just conveyed to you, was that we were all kind of under the impression that we would have the opportunity to write our own guidelines, even if our guidelines were that there was no guidelines. Obviously, the opportunity here is to preserve the buildings, maybe enhance the buildings as they sit today, adding to the historic character of the town. Not obviously, this initiative is to preserve history, not kill it. And I think it's also not to unnecessarily burden the property owners with an extensive set of rules and regulations that don't benefit anybody, and just kind of go against exactly what we're trying to achieve here. Again, my concern is that it sounds as if there was a lot of opposition here. I didn't get that from anybody I spoke to. Everybody was very much in favor of preserving the character of that corridor, with the assumption, again, that they're not unnecessarily handcuffed with what they can and can't do with their properties, and what they want to do, which is, again, preserve the character of the town. I think Nikisha said something about Steve, as he owned 2 properties. He's been one of the bigger proponents of this initiative for months, for years. I've been speaking to him about this since even it was proposed. So I'm kind of concerned that there seems to be a disconnect between what was shared with the city and what was shared with me directly, because it just doesn't kind of add up. So I would also encourage reaching back out to everybody involved in seeking some clarity, because it definitively sounds like there was a disconnect or a misunderstanding or something. I've spoken to these individuals for hours at a time. Thank you so much.
I'm Robin Baker, and I'm still a little confused about what happened to the motel sign concept. And what is the difference between aspiring to be National Registry or taking control of having a city-generated district or any kind of initiative, whether it's recognition of individual buildings or homes. I personally would support anything that moved, number one, informed. I find it interesting about the phone calls that is an effort to contact the local people to get them involved or to get them knowledgeable. I see, whether it's a district or a recognition award, if you are making the effort, which you have definitely had with your conversations today, to do anything that promotes the history of Boulder City, then you're making progress. Because one of the problems nationally and locally, people don't really understand the beauty of our history of our location and the moments in time. And I appreciate all Courtney did, but I'm wondering why once again are locals not being involved? Because I'm not sure they were cigar boats. I don't know what kind of racing went on down at the lake. But that was a significant moment in time. And if you are a local person who's lived here and appreciated and participated in Boulder City, there are parts of the history that may not have been in 1930 or 1940, but they could have been 1950, 60, 70, that would be significant to a building or a place or a time, those things that are the indicators. And it really hurts my heart that we have people who are not the silent majority, who come to the meetings, who try to have a voice and get movement, and we're in a quagmire here. And most of it is because there's no agreement about what our goal is. What is the goal of the Historic Preservation Commissioners? Are we going to promote the history? Are we trying to make houses or buildings more contributing, more like? What do we want? I'm at the point with the grant, for example, that it needs to be modified, possibly rewritten. I want it to include vegetation. I don't care if you have a landscape or not. I can see a dead tree that distracts from the home, distracts from the neighborhood, distracts from the historic district. It's not a difficult thing in my mind to find some factors that neighbors, the people who lived there, who put their money, their livelihoods, their home sensibilities into it, to make some of these determinations, whether it's a public meeting, I'll only take one more minute, I promise, whether it's a public meeting or work session or whatever it is. If you have 10 people, which you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, hey, and I know Nikisha would show up, I would show up, so you might have 12. That's 12 people that you can't speak openly with when you're in this meeting. And there are venues that you can create, and yes, you have to call people or give public notice, but it is not a difficult, oh, that's not my water. Okay, anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Were there any other written comments or phone calls? Okay. I will now close the public comment period for this agenda item. Do I have a motion to continue this public comment as well as the recommendation to City Council on the nomination of the Historic District? Is that correct? Or
Chair Davenport, you just need a motion to continue this matter to the next month's meeting.
Okay.
And then, as the chair, you have the discretion to reopen the public hearing period at next month's meeting to allow for additional public comment.
Get that?
So yeah, just a motion to continue to next month.
Okay. Can I make that motion, or does somebody else have to make it?
It should be the commissioners.
That's what I
who make
thought.
it. Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to continue this till next month and give the public more information on the research that was done and the benefits that they will be eligible for. on the next meeting.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Thank you so much, you guys. This was complicated, for sure. Right. Moving on to agenda item number 3, for possible action, continued commission discussion regarding a quarterly publication or magazine focused on historic preservation activities.
You'll see in the staff report a summary of the commission's prior discussion on this matter, and the commission asked for this to be continued to this meeting.
I just want to say thank you, Chuck, for adding that article or submitting that article to the Boulder City Magazine. It was great, and I guess I would like to see that continue rather than in a separate publication. That seems
Well,
like a good option to go forward, maybe?
Checking the article in Boulder City Magazine, one, yeah. And if anyone didn't see that, it's in the current issue. And just as an aside on that, they ran my article on the same page as an ad for mental health. I don't know if they were trying to comment on anything, but I just thought I'd mention that. But anyway, yeah, I spoke with the editor, publisher, and they did supply me with a rate sheet for advertising rates. As we discussed last month, someone said, let's see what that's all about. So I want to go back to that in a second. In addition to that magazine, of course, there was a big article in the Boulder City Review. They quoted me. Unfortunately, they ran a quarter-page photo of me. I had nothing to do with that, but the editor decided on his own to do that, but it was a nice article. Now, as far as the ad rates go, Mr. Mays mentioned last month, indicated that the city budget is pretty much far gone, and there's no way to get a budget in there to do a magazine if, in fact, we wanted to do that. But there was kind of a consensus here, the commission and Mr. Mays, that, yeah, they'd like me to do an article. And as I mentioned at the time, it's up to the editor if they would have space each month. She's not asked me to write an article for the current month, so we're not going to be in there. But then somebody else here talked about the fact that maybe we could buy a space and pay for an article each month, and which is a possibility. But Mr. Mays, last month, you indicated there was no money in the budget to do a magazine. How would we get, if we wanted to pay for an article each month, where would that money come from if the budget's already done?
Do we know how much an article costs?
Well, I have the rate sheet here, and which I will, by the way, give you at the end of the meeting. I have a copy for you as well. But the articles, depending, like all advertising, the cost depends on the size of the article. If we want a small article, large, a full page, a quarter page, whatever, well, we're talking about $600 to $150, $700. I mean, you have to see what the rates are and how much we want to spend. But again, if the budget is in, I mean, even if the ad only costs $5, if the budget is in, then we don't have $5. That's what my question is. How can we do this?
So I think I've heard from the commission from last month, there's the opportunity to submit articles, depending on space. I would encourage the commission to move forward with that approach, see how many of them make it into the magazine. You might be surprised at how many of them are included. Our communications manager just recommended that before submission, if you could submit them to Ms. LaPlante, and she'd review that, and then we can submit those. and see how many can be submitted in the next year.
To be submitted to Boulder City Magazine, you mean? Right. Yeah. Well, I'll make two comments about that. And hopefully the editor is watches Boulder City TV and watches our commission. It's just my impression that since we've asked them to send us the ad rates, and they did so, I can see, and they've told me, and they've told us that that they definitely do not have space every month for an article, and we don't have an article in the coming month. And we've asked them for ad rates. I think that, psychologically speaking, they're saying, why should we ask them for another article? They asked us for ad rates. Why don't they pay for an ad? That's just my observation on this. They haven't said that, but again, they haven't asked me for another article. So I just want to mention that. I also want to mention about Miss LaPlante, since you brought her name up. I called her a couple of months ago and said I would like to talk with her. The commission would like to talk with her. And she was very negative about that. In fact, she told me she couldn't speak with me because there's something in Nevada statutes, NRS revised statutes, that says she can't talk with the commission. I don't know where that came from, but that's what she told me. So it's interesting she told you that she wants to review articles. But if the commission, you and the commission want me to just submit columns to the magazine and see what happens, I'm semi-happy to do that. Submit them to Ms. LaPlante to send to the magazine because I just don't think we're going to get in there every month, and that means that any articles I wrote for that month is just a waste of my time because it's not getting published. And I think that again, as somebody mentioned here last month on page 14 of public comments, Brandon Smith mentioned that Boulder City Magazine is advertising heavy and content light. Again, that means that they will not publish our columns on a regular basis because they are advertising heavy. So if everybody's in agreement, I don't know if we need a motion here, but I will submit a column or two. Mr. Mays, my submission, does that go directly to Ms. LaPlante or does it go through you?
You can submit it to her directly.
Pardon me? I'm sorry.
You can submit it to her directly via email.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So do we need a motion for that?
Is that the chair's discretion of how you want to proceed?
I think it's just a continuation of what we agreed on last month. So there's no need for an additional motion tonight, I don't think.
Okay.
Just kind of a revision of the process of submitting your articles, and I guess I would suggest being pushy with the magazine,
Yeah. Okay, well, I will do that. Hopefully, Ms. LaPlante can look aside from the NRS rules that she says exist. And then I'd like to, again, continue this discussion. I'll do that, but in addition to that, I'd like to continue this discussion next month.
that's fine. Are you seeking any ideas for articles, or do you think you got it covered? Or I was thinking of something for the 4th of July, something about the flagpole maybe, and I'm happy to talk to you about that.
Okay.
I think it should be about the motel district and informing the community about possibly turning it into a historic neighborhood.
Yeah, that's a good article topic, too. Any other comments or subjects that,
I think both of those ideas are really good ideas, and whether this becomes a mechanism for us to speak to the community in a different way, and I don't know if there's anything against that, but I like the idea of even maybe proposing that as a mechanism for, clearly anybody who has this magazine or is running this magazine wants more people to look at it, because that's ads. So if this is, even if it's, whether it's controversial or not, but having content, you talked about it, it's content light. I think even just pitching that, proposing that, and like the chair said, I think just being that conduit of saying, maybe you're not considering this. It's not just a boring preservation story. This affects the community. I think it would be an interesting sell. I think, so to me, there's always been two paths. The path that you're doing right now is just, this is a grassroots effort. I think what you're doing is great. You're pitching preservation in a different way than I think this commission has ever done before. That's awesome. I think from like a budgeting standpoint, I think just even considering with every article you submit, I think it'd be an interesting ask of what this would cost normally. And maybe that's what we bring back to the commission that says, okay, so if we did 6 a month or 6 a year, times that by whatever that cost is, and maybe that's something that we can budget in to next fiscal year's budget, right? And I think that could be the ask of the city is, can we budget whatever that number is, the homework that you're doing. But I think this is a grassroots effort now. We did, you did one article. I think it's just going to build on itself month after month after month, and it'll become more of a normal thing. So I'm sure we're testing them out, they're testing us out, and yeah.
and there are 2 other articles in this May edition that are submitted by city staff. One's the Parks and Rec, and the other is Lisa. So as I understand it, they didn't pay for anything, so.
I think those articles by city staff, I think that those articles run every month. There's Chris, do you run an article every month about the Railroad Museum?
Yes, the museum has an article every month. We do not pay for it.
So that's already been established, and there's an article about the senior center that I think runs every month. So some of these things run every month, and the editor already has a handshake agreement or something that they're going to run their articles for these places every month. So HPC comes along. We're kind of like Johnny Come Lately, and we're saying, hey, could we get an article in too? And as I said, she told me she does not have space every month for our articles. So we're just kind of coming along at the tail end of things. But that doesn't mean that I can't continue to write and keep our fingers crossed that they'll run it.
I think that if the articles are informative and not trying to sell something, that then it's important for the community to hear that. And then that's what the whole magazine is about in the first place, is to inform people of what's going on in Boulder City. So she may like the articles. We just have to be careful that the content of what we're writing is something that's informative to the community and not trying to sell them on something.
Any other comments? Thanks, everyone. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 4, discussion and recap of the 2026 Historic Preservation Day.
This is the opportunity for the commission to talk about Historic Preservation Day.
Did anyone report out to City Council on the results of Historic Preservation Day?
Yes, Councilmember Jorgensen summarized the event activities.
Great, thank you.
A quick question for staff. How did we arrive on the date for Historic Preservation Day? Because it also falls on the same day as El Dorado, which creates a lot of local competition, which is another major historical event.
I guess I don't even know the history or origins of why they settled on the second Saturday of May, but it's been that way since it was created.
I assume that there's flexibility in choosing a different day if the commission and staff were open to that.
Absolutely.
Because I do just want to point out, it does create a serious conflict. A lot of people, particularly interested in the history, go to El Dorado.
I think the date can be changed. It doesn't even have to be on a weekend. It could be also a number of days over the month. I mean, I think the goal is to have it during May, which is Historic Preservation
Yeah,
Month. But
I understand that part. Also fell on National Train Day this year. in case anybody wondered.
that's where it's coming from. I mean, I got good feedback regarding all of our events. I primarily was concentrating on the water treatment plan and the Alan Stromberg event, and it was a good turnout for that. So, I'm willing to definitely change the date if we want to, look at other dates.
It seems like that month is extra busy with activities every weekend in Boulder. So you're competing against that.
Did anybody have other feedback or comments or?
I think we need to think about how we can figure out how we can get people to want to be more involved in Historic Preservation Day. It's got to be something that they want to be a part of, and so we have. And I don't know. I think it's our job to try and figure out how to make them, or not make them, but how to attract them to want to be a part of it. And maybe having it all in one place instead of 3 different places at 3 different times. I think that's a little bit difficult for them. If we just picked one place and we did everything in that one place, we might have more people. And I also think that maybe the way we do things, almost, like a wedding, you do things in a certain way so you can keep your audience or your guests there at the wedding. You don't want them to leave right away, so you do the formalities, you spread them out. And so maybe we do the award ceremony last instead of first, so that we can keep them and get them to have fun before giving them the award or something like that. It's just ideas.
I guess the question is, when do we normally start planning for Historic Preservation Day?
We'll begin again this fall.
Yeah, so I guess I would implore the commission to come up with ideas of, like you're suggesting, themes, venues, dates. Do we want to wait until September to kind of consolidate those ideas, or do we want to do this every month and hash it out, or we just need a break for a month and then?
I have a question in regards to this. Okay, so we have that new organization in town that is promoting the downtown historic area. What is that called again?
Main Street Organization.
Main Street. Okay. Are we allowed to volunteer on Main Street so that we can be a commissioner and volunteer to try and get people more involved in historic? Or, I mean, are we allowed to do that as commissioners?
Yeah, you have the ability to volunteer for other organizations.
Because I know that there's that open meeting law thing, and you got to make sure that you're not having, You know, there's not more than one or more than two people in an event talking about anything to do historic. I don't want to break any rules.
Right, so you don't want to gather and discuss historic preservation business anywhere except at one of these meetings. But if you're involved separately in other activities, you can do that.
To promote the historic district, I can do that.
As long as you're not discussing in an open forum with the other commissioners there,
Okay,
yeah.
good to know. Thank you.
So for transparency, I'm on the board of the Main Street program.
Okay.
So their board requires or seeks one person with historic preservation experience. And they asked me and I said yes.
Okay.
So, but that's the board. But there's other options or opportunities to participate in Main Street programs. So you'd have to talk to Michelle Cavan or Jill to figure that out, how you'd want to
I
help.
think if I help them, that helps us and it helps the community. But I think that we need to be more involved, not just sitting here once a month. It feels like it's not enough to get people interested in the historic district, just being behind here. But we got to get more involved somewhere in the community.
The one comment I did get was from a staff person at the museum. They would like to know why they weren't more involved. So I think continuing our relationship with Main Street program, because they were the ones that did the school banner program, or worked with the students to create the banners that you see all over town. So they were involved, but the museum, in the past, they sort of were involved sometimes, and they dropped off. So anyway, I'd like to work on that relationship more for the next Historic Preservation Day.
I can partly answer that. We poached their former director, so they had to get a new one, which is probably why they weren't in the conversations initially.
Okay. So,
It's your fault, Mark.
and we've worked with the museum, the Railroad Museum, in the past. So I'd like to continue that kind of effort. We worked with the Park Service 1 year.
And
on
I
a
do
tour.
have a relationship with Jennifer over at the Boulder City Museum. So if you need a person to make contact, I'm happy to do so.
Great, thanks. So I'd like to see, maybe that's another, like kind of piggybacking on what you're saying, working with the Main Street program. I think we could work more with the organizations that support historic preservation in some capacity. So. All right. Any other comments? Okay. So I guess we'll continue this maybe September?
That's
August,
traditionally
September?
when we revisit, just to give the commission a break for a couple of months.
Yeah, great, thank you. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 5, update on implementation of the commission's goals and priorities.
So a monthly report on the progress with the goals, and any changes are in bold, and staff can answer any questions.
Question about the NAPC statewide camp, is that virtually or in person?
It's my understanding it's virtual.
I think it's going to be in person or maybe some sort of combination of both. I don't think that's fully been decided yet.
Okay. Decided by the SHPO?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha, thanks. All right. If you can just keep us posted, I guess, on I'd be happy to attend virtually, but I'm not sure about in person, so. All right. Any other comments on the goals and objectives? Okay. Moving on to agenda item number 6, discussion and update on the status of properties in the historic district or other potential eligible properties.
Again, a monthly report, and staff can answer any questions regarding any of the updates.
Anybody have questions, comments? All right. Thanks for providing the COA for the sign, as well as the new restaurant, Nora's Lakeside. It's helpful. All right, moving on to agenda item 7, for possible action, commission discussion regarding potential agenda items for upcoming Historic Preservation Commission meetings. I think we decided we wanted to continue, I guess, just getting additional feedback or continuing the discussion regarding Chuck's work on magazine articles. Anything else that anyone wants to add to the normal, regular agenda?
Yeah, at our last public comment period, our previous meeting, Aaron Mado presented himself to the commission and asking us to make a consideration of his 1500 Boulder City Parkway. So I'd like to see the commission somehow, or the staff, whichever is most appropriate, respond to his request in some way.
I think that would be, we could have a discussion regarding, as it relates to goal 3.1 and 3.2, because I think that's where his property falls within the survey of properties, potential properties. Maybe we just have a conversation, reminder about what 3.1 and 3.2 is, where we're going from there, and discuss his property in that context.
I think there's a couple of things. One, we could just reach out to him to discuss what the Historic Preservation Ordinance provides as a mechanism for him. We'll be looking at all of the properties as part of Goal 3.1 and 3.2. So those are two avenues to respond to that request.
There's new people on the commission. I wonder if they don't know what 3.1 and 3.2 is.
I don't know what that is.
Okay.
So with agenda item 5, we show all of the goals in the Boulder City Historic Preservation Plan. And those goals are broken out between completed and in progress, ongoing. And so 3.1 and 3.2 are related to conducting a citywide reconnaissance level survey of the city's historical resources. So we know the resources in the district. We now know the resources in a proposed motel district, but this would be going beyond that. And that's where Courtney Mooney would be examining other properties within the community that would meet eligibility requirements as broken out between 1945 and 1960, 1960 and 1970, 1970 and 1980, and then 1980 to 1985. Obviously, properties constructed after 1985 would not be eligible. So that is 3.1, and 3.2 is complete a citywide historic context statement. This provides background information necessary for evaluating the significance and integrity within a geographic area. The two are tied, and so the commission had directed staff and Ms. Mooney to focus on the motel district first, but these would be the remaining goals for us to complete, and we'd be working on those going into the next fiscal year.
So what does that mean? My request is that we respond to him in some way. He came down here to our meeting and asked for us to respond. So I'm just want to follow up with that we ought to respond to him in some way, writing or.
Yeah, as I said, staff will follow up with him
Okay.
and talk to him about the process.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Is it too early to put on the agenda a discussion in regards to if the motel historic district becomes a district on making some kind of provision for the hotel owners to come up with the criterias?
I think it'd be premature to start working on that until we know whether the district would be approved by the city council.
But isn't it almost like they kind of need to know what's going to happen if it becomes a historic district rather than becoming a historic district and then finding out they don't like what happens?
Well, the design guidelines are something that's worked out by the commission. The prior design guidelines took the commission several months to work through, working closely with Ms. Mooney. And so that would expect it to be a multi-month process.
I'd also note that you don't want the owners coming up with it. They certainly want to be involved in the process, and we need to listen to them as part of the process. But the goal here is to preserve the property and the historic architecture and the elements of the properties. That's what being a historic district is about. And having the owners themselves come up with it is a conflict of interest.
And I would kind of add to that same thing is that I feel the same exact way. You can't have your cake and eat it too. There's rules and regulations that you make outside of an emotional response. It's clear, concise direction, and I don't know how it could be done outside of a certificate of appropriations, and maybe that's something that we need to have as a discussion point for the public to hear us, and then maybe they can make comment on, and we can hear their feedback as well. But I don't know how you have rules and regulations, because that is the point, is take emotion out of it, take the person out of it. It's the building, it's our care for the building, and making rules and regulations so somebody doesn't paint a building pink because they think it suits the benefit of their business or something like that. If that's outside of the historic context, I think it is part of this commission's goal is to prevent that, and that may go against a business's wants or desires, and there's pros and cons to that. But
Well, I agree with that, but then there's things like windows. Back in the historic, when they were built, the windows were single pane. They just are not efficient, and they're not energy efficient, and so then they should be allowed to have something that might look historic but meets today's standards.
absolutely.
And
So-
that's why we would have these discussions as part of a process, and you can understand why this would take several months. But the public should know that that's part of what you're asking for is these restrictions. That's what a historic district's about.
Are you asking for an agenda item where we come up with some information to share with the hotel owners that includes the pros and cons of certificates of appropriateness, design guidelines?
No, I was just seeing, maybe like informing them and maybe getting some feedback from them of what kind of guidelines they would like to have. I mean, yes, I know ultimately we're trying to keep the historic integrity of the building, and that's like the most important. But where are we going to make it so they want to make it a historic district, but at the same time, they can upgrade their properties to today's standards,
Chairman Davenport, just to kind of remind the commission,
It's
we're kind of
agenda.
running afield of the agenda item.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the motel district will be on next month's agenda, and certainly the commission could have further discussion under that agenda item.
Okay, so that, okay.
Yeah, this is really to discuss agenda items to add to next month.
Okay.
I love the conversation.
Sorry, that was my fault.
All right, I think we're good with no additional agenda items. So moving on. Now is the final comment period for the evening. Each person has up to 3 minutes to speak on any topic. The public may call 702-589-9629 to provide comments. If there's other comments or there are folks in the audience, please come forward.
Okay, all right, third time. Brenda Delormier, and This was another comment we heard a lot when they rammed through the historic preservation ordinance. We heard from myriad people who said, we don't want people painting things pink and purple. And just, if you haven't read the historic preservation ordinance, that is not in there, and it's because paint colors can be changed. And I also moved here. San Francisco is one of the places I lived where we did not have a historic preservation ordinance, but we did have an overbearing building department. And one of the things that happened when they pushed me past the brink was I went out and I got 5 gallons of Benjamin Moore's Hot Lips, and I painted my house that color just to piss them right off. And I still have 3 gallons of it unused in my garage here, just in case things ever got out of hand here. So I did tell, Blair, you were probably on the commission at the time when maybe it was the planning, actually it was the planning commission, so you didn't hear that, but the planning commission heard that from me. And I have not gone there with my house because I do want to do right by the city, but just for the record, that's not on there. And I'm just going to reiterate, we have talked to everyone, all but 2 of the motel owners. Not one of them is going to go along with this, and I do know the other 2 well enough. Actually, you talked to one. Yeah, you talked to one of the other 2. So we've talked to all but one of them. Nobody is going to go along with this if a certificate of appropriateness is any part of it. I'll just tell you all that right now. You can reach out to them with the pros and cons, but it's dead in the water right there. I won't sign off on it myself. So I really hope everybody takes that into account when reaching back out to everybody, because I think that's my last chance to articulate that before you do so. So please don't. It'll kill the entire thing, and I really don't want that to happen. We wanted this district to be the model for making a better ordinance for the original historic district. And I would like to ask one more thing, which I've already asked. I would like to know what percentage of homes in the original historic district today are contributing, or what number, because what percentage. When they did the survey, it was 43%. And I'd like to know today, 4 years after passing the ordinance, what percent are we at now? So I'd like to know if it's been effective. So that's all I have. Thanks.
So I would just like to take a moment first to speak to Chuck's idea of writing articles about Boulder City's history. I am in 100% support of it, and I did talk to more than one commissioner, actually a majority of commissioners who were in support of you can go to the city council and request money. The budget is, I think, set, but you can request money. In fact, for example, they give $5,000 to multiple service clubs in Boulder City from the budget. They have a pot of money. It's like parents. They have a pot of money, and you come and request like gas money for your car, and they say yes or no. So if you had something such as a magazine that you were going to do quarterly, or take out an ad to do quarterly, especially before the 250th anniversary or an anniversary of Boulder City, I think it would be extremely purposeful. I think anything we can do to start generating some energy about the historic district. And for the new members, I live in the historic district. I see houses deteriorating constantly. Once they have the designation, it's not important to anybody that it's maintained, despite the fact that the city requests or puts on grant applications, multiple grant applications, I am sure, that we have this historic district. So for me, not to make efforts to either at least sustain what is available or improve, help houses become contributing. As a citizen, I don't like my federal dollars being spent under what I could possibly perceive as deceptive practices, which is why it brings me to my second. I would very much like to have you think about historic preservation becoming a line item budget. As I said, I've learned about the budget, and I know Boulder City acts like a parent. They have pots, actually four pots, I believe, and you can go and ask for funds. And so I feel that, for example, you could plan better Historic Preservation Day if you knew you had a budget. $300 in my mind is not realistic for trying to promote history in Boulder City. It needs to be a significant budget, and that's not up to me to decide. But the other thing I would ask each of you to do is talk with the local people and find out what local people want. I don't want someone who lives in, and it's nothing against Courtney, Phoenix, Arizona, to come to my neighborhood and tell me that the important parts of my house are my doors, my windows, and whatever the other third thing is. I want my neighbors to tell me what's important to them. I want my neighborhood to be more like than different. If they want to paint their house purple and it blends with every other house in the neighborhood, I would be okay with that. But I want the neighbors to enjoy the neighborhood that I live in the way that I do. More like than different. Have a good evening.
Can you please introduce yourself for the record? You didn't say your name.
I can't believe I forgot. Robin Baker. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin.
Good evening once again. Thanks for your patience, Brandon Smith, for the record. Commissioner Baker, I might suggest that you throw out in any publication that you've spoken to in regards to an article where they can't accommodate you in some way. Maybe there's an opportunity for like a single page, like insert that they could just kind of distribute with their magazine. It wouldn't cost them much of anything, I wouldn't think. Give you a whole page, and somebody else is distributing it on your behalf. That might be just a simple solution to it all, where it doesn't really cost much of anything. Nothing more than a bunch of Xerox pages and an insert. Just a thought. In response to Preservation Day, thank you guys all for your, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for your participation in Preservation Day. I would like to kind of recall my first experience with Preservation Day. And I can't remember what year it was. I believe it was 2022. Ray Turner kind of had a lot to do with it. There was like an auction and stuff in the DWP building. There was a lot of information that was conveyed during that experience. A bunch of artists got to auction off a lot of work, but it was all under the umbrella of Preservation Day and having everybody in one place talking about preservation in a historic building. That's my most memorable experience of the day, and it seems to, while we had a great turnout for Alan Stromberg's memorial at the water filtration plant, I just think the day itself is not terribly well attended, and it would be great to consolidate that experience, I think, and make it a little more participatory. I'm not quite sure how to do that. Maybe drinks, maybe a mocktail bar. Whatever gets people out there, I think, because at the foundation of it all, we are a historic town, and it would be great if more people participated in its both its preservation, its celebration, and certainly honor Preservation Days. And if that needs to mean that Preservation Day needs to be a preservation weekend or a preservation week, and gives more people the opportunity to attend because sometimes it conflicts with other stuff, I think that would be great. Thank you so much for all your help.
Seeing that there are no other comments, we will close the final comment period. Seeing no one else has any other comments, we will now close the final comment period. This meeting is adjourned. Coming off early.